Like a Rubicon fruit juice.
Or like an exotic snake or something.
We're in a white country at the end of the day, we're in Britain.
Welcome to the Unapologetic Podcast with me, Sophia Leonie. Today our topic is about the mixed race female experience. I was in a play recently written by the amazing Lynette Linton about being mixed race. And off the back of that, I've realised that people are very interested in our experiences and our stories are not often told. So today we're talking about being mixed race. I've got two guests with me.
I'm Romy, I'm from North London and I work in social media.
And on my right I have
Samantha. I live in North London also. And I work for a wealth management company in the city.
Okay, so we've got two young professional women who I both identify, who are both mixed race. We're interested in being on the podcast. I'm going to ask you first how you identify. Firstly, I'll start with myself. I identify as mixed race, but often I identify as black. So I know that white society or people that are the mainstream society will look at me and see me as a black person, see me as a black woman. And my mum brought me up to be aware of that and to make sure that I was prepared for the things that would happen, being seen by authority and being seen by the outward society as a black woman. So I would identify as a mixed race person, but also as a black woman. I'm definitely politically black. What about you two? How do you identify? And what's your mix?
Okay, so my mix is Guyanese. Both of my parents are from Guyana, but they're both mixed. My dad is mixed Indian, Portuguese. My mum is Portuguese, Dutch, Scottish and French.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I've got a big mix going on. But I would say, like you, I identify as mixed race, but black as well, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because
what do you tick on the form?
Well, this has been something that I have always struggled with my entire life. Whenever I see those boxes that say black other, black Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean, African other, like none of them applied. So whenever I tick that box, if there's one that says mixed other, I normally tick that one, or black other, I tick that one.
Okay.
So those are the kind of boxes I tick, but I do have to really read them carefully and look at them. It doesn't just come to me straight away like, oh, yep, I'm in that box. And do you know what? I saw something a little while ago. I was watching like a documentary about Meghan Markle, and she struggled with the same thing. And her dad just said, if there's not a box, you draw your own one.
Oh, I like that.
I like that too. So that is what I will take forward from that. Is that next time, if I don't like what the boxes are saying, I'll just draw my own one.
Okay. And do your parents identify as mixed race?
My parents always well, do you know what? They don't really identify as mixed race. I think they more identify as black or black South American, Guyana. Like my parents grew up there and they moved to this country when they were quite young. So my mum moved here when she was like 16 years old. My dad moved here when he was like in his 20s. But they still have like really strong cultural roots, and they brought me up with those cultural roots.
So I guess not being British, I guess their identity comes from their country of origin.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
For us, being British, our identity is a little bit more complicated because we are
we're born here. Obviously we've lived in this British society all our lives, so although like my parents have passed things on to me about their culture and what it was like growing up in Guyana and things like that, you know, they'd often talk about it, what their life was like there, and obviously, you know, culturally how our household has been with like discipline, foods, all that sort of stuff, you know, it's been balanced, I would say.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Over to you, Romy. What's your mix and how do you identify?
So I would say I identify as Jamaican, British and mixed race as well, because I've mixed with Indian on my dad's side and black and white on my mum's side. So it's quite similar to you actually, where both my parents come from Jamaica, but then I am very mixed in my heritage.
You were saying something quite interesting before we started filming. that people might see us and they would be like, you're all mixed race, so you're all the same. But then actually your ethnic roots and my ethnic roots and my background and your cultural background are actually worlds apart. Our families come from completely different countries, different continents.
Completely. And I think some people, especially in Britain, some people struggle to understand the concepts that you can be fully Caribbean and still fully mixed race at the same time. And then like you're from Zimbabwe and Germany and
so my dad's from Zimbabwe and my mum's half German, half English.
So you've got 2 continents, Africa and Europe in you, and I've got Jamaican and Indian. There's like the Caribbean and Asia. It's like 4 completely different continents. But to a stranger, they would look at us and put us in the same category of being mixed race.
I find that people struggle a lot when I meet people and they look at me and they're like, I can see them looking at me and they're like, where are you from? And I'm like...
Sometimes I just say North London.
Get it.
You know?
I do.
I do.
I
mean, I
but where are you
say,
really from?
Yeah,
then you get that question.
That's what you get. So you say, what do you mean? Like, where I'm from? Oh, yeah, I'm from North London. Like, no. What's your background? What's your heritage? And then I'm like, oh, God, here we go. So then I start reeling it off and they're like, oh, yeah, I definitely see the Indian. Oh, yeah, I see the black.
I know.
I would have thought that you were Persian or Turkish or Greek. Or I get all of it. And
How do you feel about having to talk about your heritage? Because it's not... People are just interested immediately when they see you, whereas with white people, or with black people maybe, it's not, where are you from? Where's your family from? It's more kind of, I can see where you're from, let's move on to the next thing. What do you do for a living? Or
it's like a topic of conversation, isn't it? But I think because I've grown up my whole life with people asking me literally on a daily basis, where are you from? Now I think it doesn't affect me.
So you don't mind it?
I don't mind it because I know... sometimes I just say Jamaica and then some people push, like they want the full ancestry DNA breakdown.
I say, oh, I'm from Guyana. They're like, oh, Guyana. And Guyana
and what's the other half?
They want to know. They push and they push and they push, and then before you know it, you've literally like spent 10 minutes reeling out your background.
I think it's interesting, especially with you two, that you both have mixed race parents. So it's not even as simple as... you know, a lot of people's preconceived about what being mixed race is. I think a lot of people think being mixed race is being white and being black.
Yeah.
And often being British and Caribbean in this country.
They do think that because they're like, oh, they'll look at me and go, yeah, I don't think... When they think of mixed race, a lot of people do it. They think one of your parents is white, one of them is black. And I don't know why they think this when like society has evolved so much in 2018. I don't think anyone is really just black and white anymore. Do you know what I mean?
No. Especially when you look at children that are being born now. The way mixed race is perceived is evolving so much more now. It's like if I think of my friends that have children, most of their kids are a quarter of everything, like 4 different quarters, Portuguese, Angolan, Indian, Guyanese, you know. That's one of my friend's daughters.
There's so many mixed race people. Mixed race people are going to have babies with mixed race people. Like, that's just the way that it's just evolving. But we kind of touched on it. One of the preconceptions about being mixed race is that you're half white and half black. And I definitely, as somebody who's got an African background, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you're Jamaican, your mum's white. So people just don't even consider, or then they're like, oh yeah, you're Nigerian. People don't even think about the fact that there's another, you know, there's other places in Africa, and, you know, people, my mum might not just be English.
Does that get exhausting?
It's very exhausting. People don't know where places in Africa are, and you have to.
I often get, oh, you're from Ghana? I'm like, no, Guyana. Not Ghana. It's not in Africa. It's in South America. They're like, okay. Some people are very ignorant.
I haven't heard of it.
And in some ways, it's nice that we get to educate people, and we, you know, our stories help people on their journey to understand a bit more about the world. But in some ways, it's quite exhausting, and it's not your personal identity and heritage doesn't need to constantly be a lesson, a geography lesson, a history lesson for everyone. I don't know. I find it sometimes quite exhausting. But my point was that that's one preconception. Have you guys, do you think there's any other stereotypes about being mixed race that you've come across, or that people have kind of put on you, or stereotypes and myths that you'd like to dispel about being a mixed race person? What
stereotypes exist? I mean...
when I was growing up, there was definitely the stereotype that apart from you're half Jamaican and you're half white, that your white mum isn't very clever, she isn't very intelligent, she hasn't really taught you about your background.
Really?
The kind of
she can't do your hair.
She can't do your hair. And just things like that. And a lot of those stereotypes would come from black people, black girls, and the black community. So that's definitely something that I found.
Do you think that was from the old school kind of stigma around mixed race relationships back in the day?
Definitely. And it definitely was part of that.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, and it did affect me, and I found it so offensive because my mum really did teach me a lot about my background. She told me a lot about
your African background.
About my African background. Really? My mum and dad were separated. Although my dad lived quite close by, I did see him. He didn't live with us. But my mum and my dad both, they'd talk about Zimbabwe. They talk about all the things that were going on in South Africa in the 90s. We went to Free Nelson Mandela rallies. Really? Were very political. Knew all about the different things that had happened in history, colonialism. So my mum taught me a lot of things that a lot of my Caribbean friends didn't actually know. So the idea that that my mum was ignorant or my mum didn't know really was just, I found it just kind of ridiculous and bizarre.
Yeah, it's offensive, isn't it?
It was offensive.
But I think it depends on the person, the level of education that they get around their culture and their cultural history. Like whether you could be half African or half Caribbean, and some mixed race people aren't taught their black side or African history or Caribbean history at all.
Yeah. And I totally understand there are probably white women that have black children or mixed race children and they're not capable for whatever reason.
They don't have the knowledge.
They don't have the knowledge
sometimes
to teach them about their background, which I guess would happen. But that was like a bugbear that I found. And the hair thing, my mum really, she made a conscious effort to learn how to do her hair. She learnt how to plait. My auntie used to cane row my hair. Like she would never have us with messy hair.
Yeah.
We had really, she made a real effort. I wasn't even allowed to relax my hair.
Really?
And I didn't relax my hair till I was 16.
But I think that just shows why we shouldn't judge people based on what race they are, or apply these stereotypes to people.
Yeah.
Like your mum's white and she could be more conscious than a black mother, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we just don't, it depends on the individual.
Definitely. What about you? Any stereotypes that you've...
At school, some of the black girls I went to school with could be a bit harsh and, if you like, a bit hating. And they, when we have arguments and things like that, obviously now I'm grown up, I don't care, stupid. But when you're a kid, those things kind of get to you and affect you.
What do you mean by hating?
They'll say things to me like, oh, you think you're so nice because of your hair, you think you're so nice because you're light skin, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go. Do you know what I mean? And it was always reference to my hair, my skin colour, and I'm just like
were you one of the only mixed race people, or did anyone else?
My school was quite diverse actually. There was a good mixture of white, black, mixed race. It was my school was quite diverse. But I do remember...
Would you think that the mixed race was still a smaller group, though? If we would put
I would say that. It was a smaller group then, yeah. There wasn't loads of mixed race people in my school.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, and, when people used to make comments like that to me, I found it upsetting, yeah.
Did you feel like there was a hostility between darker skinned girls and mixed race girls?
I definitely do.
I experienced exactly the same thing. Everything you just said, it could have come out of my mouth. Yeah. And it's funny because at the time I didn't think it was because I was light skinned or mixed race.
No.
But as I've left school and I've spoken to other mixed race girls about their experiences, it's been a similar thing where I don't really understand why, or I can't really explain it other than the fact that I experienced that as well. And I know that a lot of mixed race girls experienced the, oh, she thinks she's too nice comments.
I experienced that.
Yeah.
I think most people that I've spoken to have experienced a similar thing.
And did you think you were too nice?
I didn't think I was too nice. But what I would say is I did notice that being of a light skin, I did have certain privileges. I did feel like I had a light skin privilege. Even from then, I did notice that in terms of what was desirable, in terms of the, when you're getting into puberty and who is more attractive and who is considered who the boys are after, I did notice that it seemed to be the girls with the lighter skin. So I was aware that having lighter skin meant that it was more kind of this socially acceptable idea of beauty, and that I fitted into that box. And that made me quite uncomfortable because obviously didn't decide that this was, you know, I don't make the rules in terms of what is society considers more beautiful, but at the same time I'm benefiting from that privilege. So I did feel like there wasn't, although there might have been a hostility aimed at me, I did get it. Even at that young age, I did get it, because, you know, I remember one time going to PAX with my friend who was buying some hair, and she was looking at some extensions, and she said to me, she said to me, "Are you getting anything?" And I was like, "I don't need to buy extensions, I've got long hair." And she was just like, "What?" I said, "I've got nice long hair." And she was just like, "That's so out of order, that's absolutely out of order, I can't believe you just said that." I was like, "What?" Because, you know, for me, I'm just saying I don't need to buy extensions. But for her, that was actually bigger and so much more loaded. It was the idea that her hair isn't good enough, her hair isn't soft enough, her hair isn't long enough, and she feels under so much pressure that she has to go out and buy hair. She doesn't have to, no one's forcing her, but to fit in, to feel pretty, she has to go out and buy hair. And here I am, completely dismissing that experience, making light of that experience, and trying to put myself above that. I didn't mean it, obviously not. But I do get it, and I did get it at that point. I couldn't quite articulate it, but I knew that there was something that I'd done there that wasn't quite comfortable.
Do you feel like because you understand it, it's justified?
I don't think it's justified, but what I do think is that if you do have a privilege, and that was going to be my next question, do you feel like you have a light skin privilege? If you do feel like you do, in what areas of your life does that manifest? And I think being able to tick the box of the kind of more acceptable face of black, or the acceptable version of black, gives us opportunities that other people don't have. And I just think it's important to know that, and to use whatever opportunities you get to change things. Because I think at the end of the day, if we get opportunities because we're closer to white, like our blackness is more palatable, that's not okay.
It's not okay at all.
I don't think I've really thought about it like that, but I'm aware, like having this conversation, I'm aware that happens. It reminds me of, did you hear about that actress, mixed race actress that was offered a role in...
Amanda Lee Steinberg, in Black Panther. I don't think she was offered it, but she jumped out, she came out of the running for the audition process, because she wanted to give it to Letitia Wright. Yeah. Or give Letitia Wright the opportunity to be in it. And I think that's really brave and just... and totally the right thing to do. Because again, what she's saying is, I know that I'm struggling to get roles out here. I'm still considered, you know, I don't have white privilege, but I have light skin privilege that puts me in a better position than somebody like Letitia Wright. But knowing that, I'll take a seat back and I'll let you go forward this time. I mean, I don't know the situation, but I think that's a good way to acknowledge your privilege and use it for good, I think.
So, I mean, I don't know. So acknowledging your privilege is not accepting opportunities that present themselves to you, or, you know, it's a bit of a grey area.
It is a grey area.
Because are white people meant to say, "Oh no, I refuse this job because a black or mixed race person has gone for the interview"? As a mixed race person or a light skinned person, you can experience discrimination in different ways from each side. It's like a mirror reversing itself.
Yeah. And because of that, you never feel quite...
Like, to white people, you might be black. To black people, you might be slightly whiter.
And in a society where race is still quite a big deal, you don't kind of fit in anywhere. I don't know if you guys find that. Or do you feel quite comfortable with your mixed race identity?
I do feel comfortable in my mixed race identity, but what I can say I experience is that sometimes you're constantly finding yourself trying to adapt to your situation. So if I'm around a lot of black people and a lot of black family and stuff, the way I am might be slightly different. I might be a little bit more, I don't know, I can't explain it. But then when you're in a situation when there's a lot of white people there, maybe you feel that you have to kind of tone it down a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you feel like you can fit in a bit more? I know what you mean, but
I think that is not just a mixed race thing. I think that's just anyone who is from any country that's not Britain. Like, if your parents or grandparents are immigrants, you can relate to the whole two culture adapting yourself around different people.
Yeah. So I constantly find myself
Do you find that
trying to kind of adapt and fit into different social situations where there's different...
Do you find that you can fit, because like Romy said, everybody feels that to some extent. Do you feel like you can fit in more easily in both? So where you feel like you're trying to adapt, but with, you know, your white colleagues or whatever situation you're in, you can slip in quite easily, but then when you're with your black friends or family, you can slip in quite easily, so you kind of become a chameleon. So you feel like you can... your identity works in all of those scenarios.
Yes, I do feel like that, and I feel that, you know, obviously when I'm with like my white colleagues and stuff, I'll tone down my blackness a little bit, but when I'm with my...
Do you ever feel like why should I tone it down?
Yeah, I do. That's another question. Is like, why should I turn it down? Why should I have to kind of tone down who I am to fit into, so that they understand what I'm talking about, and maybe not talk in a certain way, maybe not use certain words that I would use.
But that just comes down to relating to people on their level of understanding.
Exactly.
But how far when do they ever come?
When do you become fake?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or why
and then
can't
you
they
don't
come
want to
to
be
us?
fake.
Why can't they come to, you know, we're constantly trying to be palatable
to
white mainstream society. Can we not come a little bit more the other way?
We can, but we're in a white country at the end of the day. We're in Britain.
Ooh, that's...
So they...
That's a whole
but they do... Not every white person that you meet in the workplace is going to be familiar with black culture or certain words or certain things that you talk about.
But I guess if we didn't tone it down, if we didn't change for their society or for... Would it not become more normalised, is what I'm trying to say? And then would it not be so the other? It wouldn't be so different.
Yeah, I think everyone should be themselves and should educate their friends, wherever their friends are from, if they're not familiar with their culture.
And I do feel, as I've gotten older, I have less tolerance for being a chameleon and adapting myself.
Oh, definitely.
I feel that I am very much me.
Yeah.
And if I'm someone I'm talking to doesn't really understand what I'm talking about, or doesn't understand if I'm talking about a certain part of my culture or whatever, and they ask questions, I'm quite happy to fill them in about it. But at no point will I play down who I am and where I come from. I don't do that. So you know, if they're like, oh, you know, that's like, for example, I could bring something in for lunch and they'd be like, oh, that looks nice, what's that? And I'm like, oh, it's like rice and peas and chicken curry. Oh, like, did you make that? Yes, I did make it, and this is how you make it, and it's right. Would you like to try some?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And that's that.
I'll send you the recipe.
You know, people are very curious. They're like, oh, I've never seen this.
How do you feel about this?
Yeah.
Reminds me of how do you feel about the idea being called exotic?
That was something that I was going to come on to.
Has anyone ever said that to you, and how do you feel about that? How does
it
make
makes my skin crawl a little bit.
Makes me
you
feel
cringe.
like a Rubicon fruit juice.
Or like an exotic snake or something, or like this like
some strange
like being, animal, this exotic sort of being, you know. But I do feel that I was going to say that when I explain where I'm from, the reply, most men that I've told where I'm from, the first thing they'll say is, oh, you're so exotic, or that's so exotic, or
what is exotic?
It's like they exoticize you, like you're
definitely.
just constantly being exoticized. Like,
so you become kind of objectified, this thing, but just different and
or you feel like
pretty.
The more mixes you have in you, the more exotic, like more attractive it's going to sound to certain people.
And it's almost like they are more attracted to the fact that you have all these mixes in you and you're so exotic. For them, that is something that's like, wow, this girl's
That's what I was
like...
in terms of, I was going to go back to that in terms of like stereotypes. I think a lot of men think that mixed race women, or that there is this kind of stereotype, I don't know if you agree, that mixed race women are exotic, or even in the media overly sexualized in terms of being in music videos, being the mixed race girl in the music video, being the love interest, or being that kind of that exotic creature that is there to be attractive for someone else's gaze. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, if you've experienced that. It's definitely something that I experienced growing up and still see like now. Do you think that's flattering? Or
It can be flattering, but as well it can be quite cringy. If I use the word cringy at time, when you're like, you know, when guys are just so like, it's almost like as soon as you've like explained your heritage, their face lights up and they're like, they just like you so much more that you've said that you're all these amazing things. And you know, it's, I don't know, I find that it can totally change the kind of conversation once you've explained who you are and your background, and they suddenly like you so much more. And
do you feel like you're more desirable because of your mixed race?
it depends on to who though. Desirable to who? Desirable to
men,
to black men, to white men.
Yeah, but if I'm more desirable just because I'm mixed race, that I don't want to talk to that person.
No.
You know, I want someone
so you
to
don't find that flattering if you felt like that was.
I mean, I think it's important to celebrate mixed race people, and I feel like as generations go down and our kids are getting more and more mixed, it's a good way of bringing culture together and just accepting that we're human. But if you think about from a dating perspective, what do you want people to be interested in? You want them to be interested in the sort of person that you are, your interests, your hobbies, your passions.
Exactly.
You know, your looks,
And
but
not so
not your
much the
looks just
focus,
because your looks are mixed, you know?
Yeah, not so much
definitely.
the focus on that. And I do find that some men like focus on that a bit too much, and it's like, what about what I have to offer? Like, I'm more eager to explain to them, like, you know, that I'm educated, what I do for a living. Like,
You have to filter out the men that are
Yeah.
only interested in going out with a mixed race girl.
yeah,
And have you found that hard?
No, because you can tell. I think you can tell.
yeah.
I think some girls might not notice straight away, but over time
I think that comes with being older as well, and being aware of what men's intentions are generally, which I think does happen over time.
And I mean, men will be some men will be quite vocal about what their type is. Some guys will be like, well, yeah, I date black girls, I date mixed race girls, I date white girls. Some guys will just be like, I date pretty girls. Some guys
would be like, I date mixed race girls, I date light skinned girls.
yeah, and that's it.
And
I don't date
That's so
black
ignorant,
girls.
though,
Yeah, it
to
is.
just
Did you
say
ever see that video, that Van Banter video that went viral? And it was just he went up to loads of guys in Westfield. They were all dark skinned boys. They were all kind of teenagers. And said, "What kind of girls do you like?" And they were just like, light skinned girls, mixed race girls, curly hairs. Did you not see this video?
I think I've heard about it.
It was just literally, it was just one after the other. These were all dark skinned guys, and they were only saying that they liked mixed race girls. Literally.
That's so shallow.
Don't you find that so superficial and
So
cringe,
superficial,
though?
cringe,
sad. I think
shallow.
Because it's
a lot
not
of
even like
things.
a mixed race girl could be an African European girl, or it could be
Or a mixed race girl could have the deadest personality
Exactly.
you've ever known. But what the guy's going to stay with her? That he's going to date her just because she's beautiful in his eyes?
Yeah.
In his eyes,
or
she's
it's like they
beautiful.
don't
become
care
a
about
trophy,
the
hasn't it?
culture or the background. It's like, oh, any cultural background, as long as the combination produced some sort of light brown colour,
It's
that's
just,
fine.
Yeah.
That sounds so. That's
And there's
so
just
like
a lot of kind of self-hate and
it's
things that I
ludicrous
think,
to me.
you know, obviously we are beautiful, mixed race girls are beautiful, but there is beauty in all different races. There is beauty in
Definitely.
dark skin, there's beauty in short hair, there's beauty in larger ladies, there's just, and I think that's probably one of the difficulties with just being a woman as well. The idea of beauty is so narrow.
But then can you penalise a guy on his type? If that's just your type, I mean,
You can say that
You can if you question why
Why?
that is their type.
yeah. Okay.
Like,
What
is
has led to
it
that?
a result of social conditioning?
But that leads me on to my next question. What kinds of guys do you choose to date? And do you have a particular preference? Do they have to be, or are you particularly attracted to one type of guy? Is it mixed race guys, is it black guys, white guys? Does race play a part in the choosing of your future partner? Do you want to produce more mixed race children? Is that important to you? Or not?
Well, our kids are going to be mixed race regardless, right?
I guess, but if we had I had a baby with a dark skinned guy, and then my baby's going to be mixed race, but might be more on the dark side. Then if my mixed race dark baby had a baby with a black lady, then the line is going back to black. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Back to black.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear
But
where
then
you're
if I
going
had
with
a baby with a white man, my baby would look probably nearly white, but
Yeah.
mixed race, but on the lighter side. And then if that baby had a baby with a
white.
white person, we're going
yeah.
white again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
But and some people don't like that. Some people don't like the idea that their future children are going to be a different colour to them, are going to be white, or their future. I can't think of the words.
Do you know what? An old work colleague once said to me, I could never date anybody that wasn't the same colour as me because I want my children to be the same colour as me. Literally, the steam was coming out my ears. I was like, oh, wow. That is... Wow.
That's just the superficial stuff that we were talking about, though.
She said to me that she could not date a guy that was a different colour to her because she
What
did
colour
not
was
want...
she?
She was white.
Okay.
And she didn't want to date a guy that was not the same colour as her because she wanted her children to be the same colour as her. Now, as a mixed-raced woman, none of our children, unless we go out with a mixed-race guy who's very similar complexion to us, our children are not going to ever look like us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Our children are, might not be the same. Even if you were to go out with like a light-skinned guy, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be throwbacks, and doesn't mean that your child's not going to be a bit lighter or a bit darker, whatever. So for me, I was a bit like, oh.
It's the idea of preserving race, isn't it?
Yeah.
But our whole existence is that we don't preserve the race.
Yeah.
So that goes against our whole being.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really think about that because... I don't think to myself, oh, well, I want my child to be a certain colour because if they go on to be with this one...
There's so much more factors to consider.
There's so much more. And,
Did you go out with white guys, Sam?
No.
But do you discriminate and openly say, I don't date white guys?
No, I mean, it's my personal preference. I don't...
But we were just talking about preference.
But if you met a white
reasons of
guy
preference.
that had a stunning personality and was
Yeah,
treated you really well.
I would totally consider it. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
But I'm open to it. And this is another thing, is that I don't really feel that I am approached that much by white guys. When I go out, white guys don't really chat me up, or maybe I don't know if I'm not giving off the vibe that I want to be spoken to by a white guy, or he feels that she's not giving me vibes, I'm not going to speak to her. I don't know if because of my personal preference of the guys that I date, I don't know if I'm overlooking white guys and not giving off a vibe that I want to be spoken to. I don't know, but I've never dated a white guy. No.
But you'd be open to it.
I would be open to it.
Yeah.
How about you, Sophie?
Me? I haven't actually dated a white guy before, but I would be open to it. Why I haven't, though, is an interesting point. I guess it's a similar thing. I haven't been approached by white guys. I don't have that many white male friends. I tend to have more... I have lots of white female friends.
Same.
And I have lots of mixed race friends of both male and female. But in terms of white guys, I don't think I have many male white friends. And I don't know if that... You don't really date your friends anyway, but I just haven't... I guess I haven't really been approached.
And do you know what as well? When I sit here and think about... I have a lot of white friends. And I can honestly probably say that the majority of my white friends are with black men and have mixed race children. Isn't that funny?
Ah.
But that's probably a whole nother topic. But yeah, like, I don't know. I have quite a mixed group of friends. I have white friends, I have mixed race friends, I have
Same.
black friends. But yeah, and obviously like where I work and stuff is a very white environment. I go out for work drinks all the time, to bars and stuff. There's loads of white men in there.
Yeah.
I don't really get chatted up by white guys, honestly.
The only white guys I've ever been chatted up by are the ones that have loads of black friends.
But it's interesting, isn't it, though?
They must get infected by the culture. I don't know.
But
I don't understand.
What's your
I don't know
personal
why.
preference if you had to?
So I've always said I don't discriminate. So I would date anyone of any race because I care about personality and ambition and just a whole load of other things. if I think about everyone I've dated, they've been black or mixed race, but
Same.
always no one that's been from the same country as me.
Okay.
So in that sense, that's almost like dating someone from a different country is almost like interracial dating almost, isn't it? No? Or do you think that
race is not your country, is
black
it?
British culture just brings us all together?
That's what I think. That's a really good way of putting it. Actually, black British culture has found, we've found a sense of belonging in that culture, even with our mixed race heritage. We found a sense of belonging that we maybe haven't found in white culture. So although we exist within it and we can kind of blend into it and chameleon and feel accepted, and we might have privileges within it, actually, black British culture is where we feel most comfortable.
Probably, yeah.
Where we feel most at home.
I strongly agree with that, and I would say that I'm very influenced by my culture, and obviously because of my parents, like, culture has been instilled in me. So like I find it comforting, the kind of guys that I tend to go for. I kind of find it comforting that they understand my culture and
same, yeah.
And like, we have the same kind of cultural upbringing and understandings, and it just makes it a bit easier. I find. I don't know, because that's like I say, I can't really compare it because I haven't dated a white guy to be like, oh well, he was very accepting of my culture and he understood it and he learned from it and he got it.
Which absolutely could happen as well.
There are actually, I have quite a few mixed race friends who only date white men as well. None of them could make it today, so I feel like we're not representing them. There were a few reasons, but some of the reasons being that black men reminded them of their father.
Really?
Yeah.
Their father that they liked or they didn't?
Liked, but just not. It was
interesting.
Not a good reference point for dating. Another friend of mine, and she'll kill me if she's listening to this, she doesn't date mixed race guys because she thinks that they look like brother and sister when they're out. She doesn't like that. She doesn't find that attractive. So I don't know, everybody's coming from different angles.
Why do two mixed race people feel like that, whereas two white or two black people won't feel like they look like brother and sister?
I'm honestly going to say that's happened to me.
What do you mean?
Happened to me.
Somebody thought that was your...
Was my brother. I was in Canary Wharf getting donuts from Krispy Kreme, and the man behind the thing said to me, "Are you two brother and sister?" And to which we both looked at each other and burst out laughing because we were holding hands. So I don't know in what world he was in where brother and sister
That's ridiculous.
hold hands and walk up to Krispy Kremes holding hands, sort of thing. But I just thought, I was like, wow. When we don't even look alike.
You shouldn't choose.
Well, we don't even look alike,
date.
though. We're very similar complexions.
Yeah, it's just because you're both the same skin colour, they just thought, oh, brother and sister.
And maybe that there's not so many people that there still must not be enough mixed race people out there for there to be
a lot of mixed race couples.
Yeah, people just don't see it. They don't.
Based on what your friend said, I think that's really bad, because why are you choosing who to date based on what other people are going to think of you? You know that you're not brother and sister, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a bit of a throwaway comment, but it's definitely something that she said. And her preference is dark-skinned guys, so...
Interesting.
It's very interesting. Have you guys ever been on a date where somebody said something inappropriate about your mixed race heritage, or it might not even be a date, it might be a colleague, or it might be a friend or somebody that you know that said something that is just, you've just been like, what?
Actually, a friend once said to me, "Oh, Sam, you're so white." And I'm like, "What?" And she was like, "Oh, you're so white." And I said, "Why'd you say that?" "The way you talk but actually, no, you're not, because you like black men."
Wow.
And I was just like, oh, okay. So now I'm being targeted because of the way I speak, because I speak... I don't know how you want me to speak. I live in North London. I think I've got a very much North London accent, so I'm not really sure what you mean by that. I'm not sure if you think because if I was a black person I should talk a certain way, or if I'm a white
it's just ignorance, isn't it?
It's just a very weird thing. And I remember that because I was left feeling a bit like, what? Huh?
Do you think that who you date, the person that you choose to date, in some way decides the kind of side that you've chosen. So, because she then said to you, "Well, you date black men, so now you're more black," and you were like, "Oh, okay." So you felt.
I was like, I wasn't even okay. I was just baffed. Like my whole face, my whole face was just like, what has she just said? I don't really know what she's saying to me. So she's like, well, is she having a go at me because I speak well, or I don't speak well, or I should speak a certain way because I date black men, or I don't, or because I'm not white, or
is she saying
I don't know.
you're white because you're well spoken, and then what is not well spoken going to be black? Like that's technically racist.
That's basically when I kind of thought about it. That's basically the kind of conclusion that I came to because I didn't really know. After thinking about it for a while, I was like, I don't really know where she's going with this. I don't really know what that comment even meant. It was just one of those comments that she said that stuck in my head.
And did you pull her up on it after?
I was just like, why did you say that? Like, what are you talking about? And she was just like, she couldn't even explain herself. And I was just like, do you know what? Okay, whatever. I think
the most inappropriate comments I've got a few times is the assumption that I'm confused because I've got more than one kind of background.
I've experienced that.
Have you had those comments
before?
Before?
More when I was at school. Yeah. The idea that, you're confused, don't know who you are. When I felt like I really knew who I was, I really knew a lot about my identity and my background. So it was more like, maybe you're confused. Maybe you don't get me and you don't get my background because I get it.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Because I've had people... So I'm thinking of one situation in particular. I met a friend of a friend, and I was with my friend who was also mixed race, and she immediately said, like to direct quote her, it was along the lines of, "Oh, you're both mixed race. You're mentally confused then."
Oh, wow.
Without asking us where we're from. What our heritage is. No, like she barely knew our names, and the first thing she said was, "Okay, you're both mentally." A friend of a friend. So she wasn't from the UK though. I think she was on holiday from Kenya or something.
I don't know why. I have heard more than one black man talk about their light-skinned friend and say that they think their light-skinned friend. I was talking about a boy. So a black man is talking about their light-skinned friend, saying that he's confused and saying that they're all light-skinned men are a bit crazy. They're all confused.
Oh yeah, I've heard
they're
that.
Crazy. Like whatever it is, it hasn't meshed properly, and they're a bit nuts and a bit crazy. I've heard that I've heard a black man say that about their light-skinned friend on more than one occasion.
Oh wow.
So I don't know why people think that light-skinned or mixed race people are a bit nuts, I think a bit crazy.
They feel confused, so they just put it on you.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the stereotype that mixed race or light skinned guys are softer than black guys? That they're a little bit more wet, romantic, and
they're the stereotype put on them as being sweet boys. Isn't it?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, all light skin guys are like sweet boys or whatever. Like good looking light skin guys, sweet boys. I've heard that before as well.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced that stereotype, or do you think that's pure nonsense?
No, it's pure nonsense.
I think it's rubbish because there's some ugly light skin, some good looking ones.
Yeah, and some horrible ones.
Some horrible ones.
Some lovely
ones.
It's like any race or any human at the end of the day.
Exactly. So you can't. No, I can't put a label on it, and I can't say, oh yes.
Of course not. What do you think the hardest thing is about being mixed race? And then what's the nicest thing about it? What do you like about it?
Well, I'll start with what I like about it. I think is I'm very proud of my heritage, and I like being me, and I like that I'm different and that I look different to a lot of other people, and it makes me unique, and I like that about myself. So I suppose that's one thing that I like. Anything that I found hard about being mixed race is just, I do wonder, like, if it has hindered me in any way to do with jobs and just being in society in general. Like, has it held me back in any way? I don't know. I mean, I've got a great job and I've done really well. I've been to university and all the rest of it. But I wonder, like, at times has it held me back, and has it been a factor in me not getting that job, or has it been a factor in me not getting to that next stage or whatever? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I suppose that's one thing that I ponder sometimes and think, you know, what.
But would you, if you weren't mixed race, I guess you wouldn't be you.
Exactly.
So would you?
And I like being me, so
Yeah.
it doesn't. That's the only thing that I can really say about that. But I more say that I enjoy being who I am, and I enjoy being mixed race. As I said, I'm absolutely happy in my skin. I'm not confused. I'm not crazy. You know, I feel very, very happy with who I am and what I've achieved in my life. I'm very, very comfortable in my own skin. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of my culture. I know who I am. I don't need anyone to kind of put me in a box and be like, you are this or you are that. I am what I am, and that's the end of that. If you don't like it, if you like it, here, that's how it is.
What about you?
The hardest thing for me would be answering where you're from every single day. Where are you from? Where are you from? And then where are you from? When you say, where are you from? London. But where are you from? Jamaica. Okay, and where are you from? It's like, oh my gosh. I've done the ancestry DNA test. Yeah. So sometimes I feel to just show people my results and be like, here's the full breakdown.
Are there any surprises?
Loads of surprises. So the white in my mum, we always thought was Irish, and it was Finland.
Oh.
Obviously I've got Jamaican background, so I got a breakdown of loads of African countries. There was like Benin, Togo, Ghana and Senegal.
Wow.
Adding up to about 30%, which was really fascinating. 1% Australian Aborigine was a big surprise.
Wow.
And 3% Chinese was a big surprise.
Wow.
And then the South Asian / Indian was not a surprise, but it was just like reaffirming that.
I want to do that.
I want to do that. Yeah, it's
I
really
think
interesting,
everyone,
isn't it?
Yeah, I think everyone should do it, definitely. So I only did it earlier this year. But I would say that connects to what I was going to say about the best thing about being mixed race is that it's prompted me to kind of learn more about so many different places and educate myself on my family's history, Caribbean history and the history of migration. And I just feel so much more aware of like the world and how we've gotten to where we are today, more open to embracing all cultures, other cultures, having like so many different mixes. I just kind of
sorry to interrupt you, but when you go back to Jamaica sometimes?
Yeah.
Whenever you go to Jamaica, do you feel like do you feel a sense of home? Do you feel like it's...
Definitely. So both my parents were born and grew up in Jamaica, and a lot of my family is still over there. So I definitely feel like when I go back, like I'm reconnecting to my roots. I know that not necessarily all Jamaican people are going to look at me. They'll look at me and they'll straight away think, that English girl. We were talking about this before the podcast, though. But what other people think when they look at me doesn't affect me, because I know where I'm from. I know exactly the culture that I was raised with, and now I've broken down my ancestry. I feel like no one can tell me anything. No one can tell me I'm confused. No one can tell me that I'm not Jamaican, because I identify with that as my mother country. And yeah, I think it's just really important as a mixed race person to be confident in embracing multiple countries, you know?
multiple heritages?
Yeah.
What about you, So? What do you think? What have you found hard about?
Well, kind of going back to what we were talking about, I went to Zimbabwe when I was very little, and then I went back to visit my dad, who was out there, in 2015, and I don't know, I did expect to find a kind of sense of home when I went back. I didn't find it. I felt so Western.
Really?
I felt so out of place, actually. I didn't feel like I found a sense of home. Obviously, it was nice to see where my dad grew up and see his family, and it was just a whole nother world, and I found it really interesting. that, you know, the Western world has moved on so far, and the different ways that other people live. I found it really interesting, inspiring, and also quite devastating as well, for lots of reasons. But I didn't feel like it was a place that I belonged. I felt so British. Even my family would say, "You're so white," or
Wow.
"white girl," or things like that. I felt so white, and I never felt like that before. I'd always felt like black, pretty much, in this country. And I realised just how British I am, and how much of a Black Briton I am. And within that, I'm a mixed race person, and I know that that's different from being fully black, and I can recognise that. But I really did feel like I'm British. And I think maybe that's because I grew up with a white mum. Even though she taught me so much in terms of about my identity and about black culture and black struggles, actually I'm British, and I really do feel British. I don't feel like there's anywhere else in the world that I feel is home.
Was that the first time you went to Zimbabwe?
As an adult, I'd been as a child.
Okay.
So when I was 7, then I went back as in my early 30s. So a whole chunk of life had happened. A whole chunk of self-identity and who I am had kind of manifested, and I went back there, and it just wasn't. I don't think like you guys, you have that sense of culture, whereas for me, Black British culture is a place that I feel most at home, and I definitely feel like I'm British.
I think we form a lot of our cultural identity in like our teenage years. And as a teenager, I visited Jamaica every single year, most summers. My dad would take me. I would spend time with family in Kingston, go to the countryside, like spend a lot of time there. And I feel like that period of life from like 13 to 19, going every year kind of reinforced the culture for
identity.
me. Whereas a lot of people who stayed in England through that period of life, or they visited their countries of origin less often, they just identify more with Britain because that's where they were. That's where they were experiencing life and culture, you know.
And I think it's a bit of a conflict as well, because where I do feel British, I don't feel like Britain feels like I'm British. I don't feel like Britain embraces me. Black British culture maybe, but I don't feel like, especially now with Brexit and with people kind of being overtly extremely right-wing and racist, definitely don't feel like it's a place that I'm made to, with the Windrush scandal and all of that. And my dad had a similar problem to the Windrush scandal, where he was denied access back to the UK. Having spent, you know, over 20 years working here, they needed him to provide all of these details and stuff. So I still feel like this country doesn't necessarily accept us, even when we've lived here all our lives, most of our lives, or when we've worked here, or when we've contributed to culture in so much. And I think that's a really interesting thing about British culture, is we take it on. I take it on. I feel British, but then I don't feel like
embraced by Britain.
I don't feel embraced by Britain.
But you can go back to like even the tick boxes that we were talking about. You know, whenever you fill out like an official form, they want you to describe your nationality. But if you were born here, then
you just feel like, but just
because
leave
if
me
you were
alone. Just allow me.
If you were born here, they still try and break it down and say Black British, Asian British.
Yeah, but why? I don't know.
Yeah, why do we even have to have that as an option?
Exactly.
You know, why does that question need to be included?
Maybe it's for diversity. Maybe it's so they can make sure that they're getting enough.
They say that, but then the question comes up on things that aren't even relevant.
Yeah, you're right.
It comes up on every single form that you fill out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why have I got to do these tick boxes? What has that got to do with like?
It does make you feel like the other. It really does make you feel different.
Well, you have to choose. I mean, I choose.
But like I said, I like being
Mm.
different. Like I said, I'm quite happy to be different, and I embrace being different, and I like it. If I am different, if what I am is different, then I like who I am, and I like being different. But like, you know, going back to what you said, that's really fortunate you've been able to go back home and to where you know your family are from and all of that. I went to Guyana when I was probably about 5 years old, and I have not been back since.
Really?
So
It'd be interesting to go back and see how you feel.
I really want to go, so I would really like to go, and I do have some family still there. Like my cousins go there a lot, and like my cousins like live out there and stuff. And whenever they're here, they're always like, oh, you know, you should come. We'll take you round. We'll show you family. We'll do this. We'll do that. But then they say that, oh, there's a lot of trouble out there. You got to be careful, and that puts me off a little bit. I'm just like,
but there's a lot of trouble in London.
But the way they say it, they say people in my country getting kidnapped and stuff, and I was thinking, I don't want to get kidnapped, but I don't know how bad it is or whatever. But you know, obviously that they tell me these things. I don't know because I've not been, so I can't say. But I would really hope that when I do go to Guyana, that I immediately am like, oh my God, like, you know, this is what my parents have taught me about all my life, and this is and now I understand what my mum was talking about when she talks about her childhood, and when my dad talks about his childhood. You know, I hope that I kind of go there and kind of get that kind of wow.
Well, I hope you do.
So do I, and not.
When do you think you'll get a trip out there?
I don't know. Probably maybe next year or the year after. I don't know.
Yeah. This brings me to a question I didn't actually get to ask. Do you feel like your parents prepared you for being mixed race, if that can even be a thing? Do you feel like your parents prepared you for a life where you don't quite fit in any particular box?
I think, I don't know, because I didn't really think of myself as mixed race until I was much older.
Did you not?
No. And my mum is technically mixed race, but the term mixed race is very new, so she would have only started using it in the past 10 years. When we were younger, the only term we had to describe light-skinned people was half-caste, and we didn't really fit that box. So
I was just going to jump in there. I don't know about you, but the half-caste was definitely a term that was used when I was younger.
Yeah.
But it was... My mum immediately told me, don't let anyone call you half-caste or mixed race.
Yeah.
So I think I had a very different experience. It was just
because your mum was woke.
Yeah, but that
I was going to say because your mum was white.
No.
To conclude, I think everybody's experience being mixed race is very different.
Definitely.
And where society kind of groups us into this one box. Just talking to you guys and like the other people that I know that are mixed race, we all have very, very different, unique experiences. I think there are definitely some things that we share, but our experiences are definitely unique. And there are lots of things that people think about us, and hopefully we've dispelled some of those myths today. We don't always find it nice to be asked where we're from over and over again. We don't particularly like that. We don't like to be exoticised, and we don't like to be fetished upon. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today on the Unapologetic Podcast. I've really enjoyed having you and hearing your experiences. Guys, join us next time.